This lesson is over adding integers. First of all, before we get started, let's discuss what an integer is. It does not include decimals, does not include fractions. It is any positive or negative whole number. For example, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, and so on in both directions. Add integers, typically we will use positive and negative counters until we learn the process, and then you will have just some rules to remember to be able to do it in your head. But we'll be using positive and negative counters to model this situation. The the positive counters are typically yellow, and the negative counters are red, and they represent -1 and +1. Remember that addition means combining two sets. So this is 3 positive counters, and this is -3 counters, and they represent +3 and -3 respectively. So for example 1, we are going to use the counters to find -2 plus -4. So we are combining two sets. The first set is -2, so we use 2 red counters, and the second set is -4, so we use 4 red counters. When you put those two together, because it's addition, you get -6, and that's represented by 6 red counters. When one positive counter is paired with one negative counter, the result is called a zero pair, because +1 and -1 essentially cancel each other out. So the value of that is 0. We're going to draw these counters to find 8 plus -4. This is going to represent 8. And then I'm going to add to that 4 red ones to represent -4. Because we have reds and yellows, we've created some zero pairs. So what we're going to want to do is show that those cancel out. So this guy, this set, and this set basically equals nothing. So what we have left is 4. Next, we're going to demonstrate -3 plus +3. So -3, of course, is 3 red counters, and +3 is 3 yellow counters. Cross out our zero pairs. And in this case, we actually have nothing left. So our answer is 0. Sometimes we're actually going to use number lines to model this as well. Whenever we start on a number line, we always start at 0. The first distance you move is represented by the first number. The second distance you move is by the second number. If there was more, you would move 3 or 4 times depending on the problem. So in this first problem, we're going to move +8. On a number line, positive numbers always move in the right direction. Negative numbers move in the left direction. So starting at 0, we are going to draw an arrow up and move over to the 8. Then it says to add -4. Now that doesn't mean you come up from here and go over to -4. It means you move in a negative direction 4 units. So we're going to start at our 8, which is right here. We're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. Wherever we end up is our answer. So in this case, our answer is going to be 4. Now we're going to do -3 plus 3. Again, we're going to start at 0, and because it's negative, we're going to move to the left first this time. And then starting at that point, now it tells us to move in a positive direction 3. So where did we end up? At 0. There are some rules that you can use to help you remember how to add integers. A positive and a positive Because they are the same sign, you add the numbers and you'll get a positive answer. Just like down here, where you have a negative and a negative, same sign, we're going to add the numbers, but this time you get a negative answer. The two situations where you have a positive and a negative, or negative and a positive, you're going to subtract those numbers and take the sign of the larger number. And I don't mean the larger number is in which one is further to the right on the number line. I mean the larger number is in what is the actual number there. So if it's -8 and +5, -8 is what we would consider the larger number because we had more negatives to start with. So for example, say I had 2 plus 3. Those two numbers have the same sign, so we add them and we keep the sign. Sign was positive. But if I had 2 plus -3, those two have a different sign. So I subtract the numbers. Forget about the signs when you do this. 3 minus 2 is 1. And then keep the sign of whichever you had more to start with. This means I had more negative counters. This means I had less positives. So since I had more negatives to start with, my answer is going to be negative. If it was -2 plus 3, I've started with more negatives this time. So my answer, or sorry, I've started with more positives this time. So my answer is going to be positive. And 3 minus 2 is 1. If they're both negatives, you add them and keep the sign. Now, that's actually not how I typically like to think of it. I think that memorizing rules, it's really easy to forget them. So I usually choose to think about it as money. This means to me, anytime you have a positive, it means you got a paycheck. Anytime you have a negative, it means that you owed somebody money. So if you had a paycheck for $2 and then you got another one for $3, you now have $5. However, if you got a paycheck for $2, but you owed somebody $3, you don't have enough money to pay your debt. So you still owe them money, which is why it's negative. And if your paycheck was $2 and you owed $3, you still owe them $1. In this case, this means you owed somebody $2 and then you got a paycheck for $3. Did your paycheck cover your debt? Yes. And you had $1 left over. This means that you owed somebody $2 and you owed somebody $3. You never got a paycheck there. So you owe somebody $5 total. So let's practice some more. This means that you have a paycheck for $10 and you owe somebody $5, which tells me you still have $5 left from your paycheck. If you think about that as counters, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 counters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negative counters. You had 5 left. -6 plus -4 means you owe somebody $6 and you owe somebody $4. So you owe a total of 10. If you think about it as counters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you add 1, 2, 3, 4. That's -10 total. You got a paycheck for $2 and you owed somebody $2. Your paycheck covered your debt, so now you have nothing. With counters, you had 2, you owed 2. Those 0 pairs go away, you got nothing. So you owe somebody $8 and you get a paycheck for $5. Unfortunately, your paycheck did not cover your debt. You still owe somebody $3. In counters, let me draw it over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5. 0 pairs. You still owe 3. That's all for today. Check on my website. Look for your edition of Integers homework. Make sure you put your name, period, and date on it. See you tomorrow.